Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Occult Explorers. I'm Snappy, and I'm joined as always by my dear friend and co-host, Dion. How's it going, Dion?
Life is fabulous today. We're still breathing.
We're still breathing. We're still here. We're alive. It's a beautiful, wonderful day. So for this episode, we have to begin serious trigger warnings, right? This episode is going to be graphic. It's going to be political. We are just a couple of dudes. We are here talking about this because we believe it is important to talk about it. And we believe that we have something interesting to share. But ultimately, this is just our opinions. Take it with a grain of salt. Life is beautiful, and we go forward. Anything to add, Dion?
Oh, get ready to have some fun.
All right, so we're coming in now with our third part of our deep dive into Epstein and the related conspiracies. So you've taken us on quite a journey and have established this whole sort of underground yet not underground network of elites, global elites that are connected to these billionaires, connected to these powerful nations, and connected to the trafficking of women. What can you tell us about the previous episodes before we dive in today's deep dive?
First of all, I'd like to give credit to a lot of other people who did a lot of the research. A lot of channels I like are books, Crazy Days and Nights, Mint Report, Michael Wolff, Whitney Webb, amongst that, going back to all the original conspiracy stuff that back in the day people took for granted, even from Alex Jones, David Icke, all that kind of stuff. Turns out a lot of that's becoming true. All these different conspiracies. We find ourselves in conspiracy land now,
right?
Where it's the world of speculation, where we can neither confirm nor deny if any of this is real.
Well, it's gotten to such an absurd point. One of the things, I have a religion studies degree, and my perspective is that 99% of religion is propaganda to control. And you know what? With the advent of the internet, we've taken on a whole new form of disinformation and radical, wild myth cultivation. And it's left everyone just staring in awe at the sheer absurdity. So let's just take a whiff of this ridiculous bullshit and try and make some kind of sense, because things have gotten so absurd. I mean, I just keep thinking now, in the last 4 years, since AI, now we have to doubt video. What can't we not doubt? Unless it's in front of my face, I don't know what to trust.
Right, huh? Well, I remember there's the guru Ramana Maharshi had a saying, who am I? That was the question. Question yourself at that.
Absolutely. To know thyself is the whole of the path, right? Beautiful.
Yeah. So where we left off was a transnational global crime syndicate involving MI6, CIA, Mossad, the Italian mafia, Vatican, banking families, royalty, corporations. If you get a couple zeros in your bank account, you join the club by osmosis.
Wow. Yeah, they wind up getting to you, right? If you can make that kind of money, you're in, right? And those who don't make that kind of money are out, right?
And art influence, it comes to influence. So
yeah,
we did the occulted world of espionage, the great game, talking about it's been a great game since day one amongst royalty and countries fighting over real estate and power. And eventually, intellectuals, philosophers, artists, musicians, poets are at the front lines of this too, because they generate myths that help build these nations. They collect information because they're the ones that go on tours. Back in the 1800s, regular folks, you didn't leave 50 miles from your house. You couldn't read or write. But these people could read or write. They can get on steamboats. They could go to other countries. And this is the world of espionage. This is the world of where Aleister Crowley's a spy, where Young is involved as a spy. Gurdjieff is involved as a spy. We're talking about the crossroads of entertainment and the occult and politics.
Right. This is where everything, all of these constructive narratives always serve a purpose. And what is the point of all of this kind of magic, right? Mimetic or otherwise? It is to unite people in a shared collective will, to bring people under some semblance of order and control. And it has only been ratcheted up to 1,000 in the information age with technology and billionaires. Now you have billionaires who are playing in the realms of magic and construction, right? And we have to seriously talk about this, right? Like, and it's been like this for a while. The first time I saw someone switch from being a simply calling themselves a propagandist to an outright magician was in Russia with the advent of, what's that guy's name? Dugin, Alexander Dugin, and his whole invoking of the absurd. I'm a Nazi commie, right? And that whole absolute radical wildness. And that ultra nationalism and playing in mimetic magic has only exploded since there. We've talked about it several times in the rise of Trump, and now we're seeing it on full display in this kind of current cover-up and connected to the whole Epstein thing entirely, right? A lot of this magic is about gatekeeping. A lot of all of this is about gatekeeping.
Yep. Gatekeeping by rich folks, by the deep state, by the shadow world. Call it the mafia, the mob, you call it whatever you want. But there is something else that's there that doesn't, we have normal things. I have stoplights. I have a bank account, everything, traffic tickets, everything we do is in a regular world that's maintained and policed. These are people that live in a world that's apart from that, on yachts and private airports and gated communities. They don't go to the same school. Like, the money's a little different here.
Right? Like a lot of it, like we can't relate and we have a hard time imagining. Imagine you came from old money. You didn't work, your father didn't work, your grandfather didn't work, and your great-grandfather didn't work. You all just lived in inherited wealth and in affluence. And you just work behind the scenes to maintain said affluence. That's what you do now. Yeah. You just keep the gate shut.
And that's the story. That's what we're talking about, is the affluence behind the gate, the old money. Because that's where this story ends up. First, people get attracted to the Epstein story through the nefarious stuff that he's doing to women. And then they hear, well, hey, politicians and other rich people are involved to this.
We got to be clear. He's not doing this to just some women, but mostly children.
Right. And there's men involved. There's everything's involved here.
Yeah.
But that's the first foray into it that people might hear. And then from there they hear, oh, well, there's money. There's lots of money behind the scenes involved. And there was banking fraud and stock fraud and lots of different things. And then you start asking, and then the government's involved, and presidents, Democrat and Republican. And then people start asking, well, who's behind that? And then we get to our banking families, royalty, and just the rich folks. Because they're the presidents and the Epsteins and these folks are just the employees for these bigger families and richer people.
You know, and it's funny. It's like we're seeing this massive kind of globalization, and it's happening kind of under our nose and out in the open all at the same time. There are these billionaires who don't pay taxes. They don't have any permanent residence in any singular nation, and they live kind of above the law in this weird zone where their money allows them to just move around wherever they need to, right? If, like we saw, the Panama Papers happened, exposed all of this, all of these billionaires who have no national ties and just couch their money in these hidden banks and in offshore assets and what have you. And what happened? The journalists got killed and no one went to jail, right?
Well, and that was Epstein's job, was hiding the money. That was one of the things he did that people consulted him for. So, we should jump in, throw that first pickup. Let's go.
Oh, sorry. Let me pull that down. Okay. This this website wants to be silly to me. Okay, here we go. There we are.
We'll start off at the party. Let's go to the party. This is what we're talking about. The party that I'm not invited to. You might have seen Eyes Wide Shut,
right? As George Carlin said, it's a big club and you ain't in it.
Yeah. If you've seen Eyes Wide Shut, there's weird stories behind that, along with Stanley Kubrick's death, the missing footage, what you have, and supposedly that's set at a party in the Hamptons, out of New York. And this isn't from that. This is from a different movie. But I just want to set the mood here. If people have seen Eyes Wide Shut, where they go to a private party and it's rich folks wearing masks and they have a cult and secret passwords, and actually that has taken place in history. Back in, this has been going on as a tradition for years.
Not even just back in the day. I remember you sent me an article a little while ago talking about in Italy, where all these people got exposed as part of this underground brotherhood connected to fascism and Mussolini, and they were all swearing oaths. And we're talking like thousands of people got exposed. And this was a huge deal because secret societies are illegal in Italy. And this is like upsetting their entire political spectrum. All of the elites are part of some hidden secret fascist cults. Like you think we're making this shit up, and then it gets exposed in the mainstream media, right?
Yeah. Well, this house right here, actually, you've seen it in a movie. This is from a movie.
Which movie?
The Ninth Gate. There's a scene in the Ninth Gate where they go to a house and they're having a satanic ritual. And the lady's name is Liana. The last name is San Martin. And this is supposed to be her family's chateau. And there's
San Martin, we're talking about Martinism and Masonry now, right? San Martin, one of the most important philosophers of Hermeticism and Masonry.
Yeah, and also Pasquale de Martin, his teacher above him. But the fact that Mr. Polanski, who's like Jeffrey Polanski, our Roman Polanski here, is the same MO, just so you know. Could be at these parties as well. In his movie, he picked this place to film that scene, connecting the lead Satanist lady to Saint Martin, as well as this house. And this house in real life is called Chateau de Ferrier. This is a Rothschild mansion.
What?
and this is the Rothschild Chateau where they did the famous surrealistic ball that people have heard of from 1972, because this was the Eyes Wide Shut party back in the day where they actually brought in cameras and showed the regular world, like, hey, this is how we party. Go to the next image.
Oh, wow. Rothschild house.
Yeah, so now here's the Rothschilds. And trillionaire family. Literally. Involved in politics, banks, everything. And this connects to the story because Epstein had two separate deals with two separate Rothschilds. Evelyn and what's the other one, if I remember? One of them, he consulted the Bank of Rothschild. Had an appointment with Epstein. They consulted like for his services, like, what does the Bank of Rothschild need from Epstein? Well, let's take it back to 1972 at this party called the Surrealistic Ball that she put together right there. And with that money, and it's that Eyes Wide Shut stuff. And who was in charge of the decorations? Salvador Dali. Now, the way Dali did this was you would get an invitation that had reverse writing. You had to hold it up to the mirror to see what it even said. You're invited to come to the, the Eyes Wide Shut party. And if you've been watching Occult Explorers, you could already see the symbolism in the mirror stuff, the reversal stuff, all that. It could get so deep.
We should talk a little bit just about surrealism so people understand. So surrealism was started in France by this occultist named Andre Breton. And his essential method for composing magical works of art was automatic painting and writing. And he popularized this and created surrealism in sort of its own empowered secret society, and was deeply political, communistic, trying to engage in socialistic revolution in France. And it had huge impact. Now, Dali was kind of tangentially related to this. He adopted many of the magical techniques of Andre Breton, what was notoriously anti his political stance. Dali was hugely a romantic in terms of nationalism, and was like deeply Catholic, and deeply connected to power and to wealth. So he was kind of twisting a lot of this revolutionary surrealist magic and using it to serve state and to serve power. Dali is a nefarious figure.
Well, that's what this is about. Because when you would arrive at that chateau, he had it decorated to look like it was on fire with special lighting. And there was a black ribbon, a series of black ribbons that would lead you into the house. And once through those ribbons, you'd go through a series of rooms, which we know is initiation, through a series of themes before you get to the final party, which is not even the final party, mind you. That's the final public party, because they had photographers there. Go to the next image. It was filled with celebrities, royalty, bankers. Here's Audrey Hepburn. And her costume was, she went as the caged bird. And I mean, there's so much occult symbolism in this stuff. It'd take too long to unpack. But mind you, there was a real bird in there at a certain point. Yeah, and so this party had bankers, royalty, elite, models. And you got to ask yourself, when the people that are doing all this hoo-ha during the week, signing contracts and the stock takeover and the fraud, what do they get up to on the weekends? And this is what they do when you go out to the Hamptons or you go to the mansion. And this is where the real power is asserted, because sometimes it's not just the corporation and the legal power, it's your old money power, it's your spiritual power. It's like Rasputin, because everyone has their own house astrologer and their own shamans. And you'll see that in this story. And so, like I said, Epstein had 2 different business deals and met several times with the Rothschilds. And the Rothschilds are also invested in other players that we're going to talk about in the story. You know, so the concept of these parties, rich folks parties at night or day, are something called the salon. Because even before this, there's a party that's more famous than this in the Rothschild family. It's Betty von Rothschild, or Lucy von Rothschild. Actually, Zoe Betty at that. Zoe Betty von Rothschild. Back in the day, used to host these salons. Salon du Glace, the salon of ice. And she would invite politicians and celebrities and poets, and they would come together in France and discuss politics. Because it's about politics when you get these people together. This is just like the golf course, kind of business meeting at the golf course. This is at the occult party.
Right.
This is Bohemian Grove, where you discuss, like, hey, what's going to happen during the week? Let's talk about another party that's famous called the Kit Kat Club. These were founded 1800s, late 1790 or somewhere around there. And in England, originally, it was a group of people that were, it'd be hard to, I won't even discuss the Whig Party and old English politics, but it involves that type of stuff.
Reform type stuff, we'll say.
Yeah.
You know?
And this is like the Hellfire Clubs and stuff like that, where you get intellectuals and politicians and lords and dukes coming together to discuss things, intellectualism and politics. It all ties together, and getting high, getting drunk, doing opium, whatever they're doing. And women are involved in that as well. It's part of it. Women or boys, man, whatever they're into, you'll see at these parties. And what's ironic about that is that the Kit Kat Club later is a famous club in Berlin for sex in industrial music. It's almost like a brothel meets the nightclub, the famous Kit Kat Club in Berlin. But in between that time period in the 80s, let's talk about Ghislaine Maxwell, because this is all about Jeffrey Epstein as the character into the Shakespearean play. He's just the doorway, and there's other characters in this play, and Ghislaine is one of those big characters, and that's where I want it. We've talked about her father, the relationships with Jeffrey and her father, or the other people and her father, the nefarious stuff, the things he's done. Ghislaine is is getting a lot of public attention right now in the media for maybe getting a parole, being moved to a different prison. She did a testimony with the DOJ where she said, I did nothing, Jeffrey did nothing. She said she has a medical condition. She doesn't even like sex. She said that Jeffrey had a heart condition. He couldn't even have sex, you know?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot to it that she's been talking about. But a lot of people consider her to be the Black Widow, meaning that she has her own nefarious stuff aside from that. So in terms of the Kit Kat Club, she started her own Kit Kat Club in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
Ghislaine Maxwell, where people would come to the Daddy's Manor or Chateau, and it was about women's empowerment, women's business leaders. Really, it's the opposite of what her actions are later on in life. This is what she's talking about, but she's also talking about in her recent deposition about the abuse that her father did to her, and the other family corroborates that the father was very abusive with her.
Oh,
Maybe
wow.
sexually, verbally, violent. One time he hit her hands with hammers, and supposedly they had a wild family. But that's just to show you this world that they live in. Now, if go to the next picture.
Right.
Okay, so in that same year that they did that modeling party, or the surrealistic ball, 1972, is when John Casablancas founds his modeling agency, Elite Models. You might have heard of Elite Models. And Elite Models, here's the guy right there with his buddy Trump, because later on, he starts a modeling agency with Trump. And they would do a lot of projects together. Where like the boat stuff later on, that's John Casablancas on the boat with Trump, with the young models. And so, but John Casablancas has been in trouble, and he's been around for a long time. We're going back to 1972 in France when they're doing that party. Supposedly he supplied part of the models for the party. And you'll see how they're all interconnected. And what's weird is, all right, elite modeling, because we could talk about IT models, Ford models. There's a whole bunch of MC2, Trump model management, and they're all interconnected in different ways, you'll see. But what's ironic, the guy right there, John Casablancas, Elite Models, his lawyer, when this guy's getting busted too with the young girl stuff in the early 90s, his lawyer gets busted, named David Weil. And he gets busted for money, fraud stuff, like, accounting stuff. But he also gets busted for teenage girls, both. Well, this person, what does he do now? I looked him up on the LinkedIn, and national security. He consults the United States government for national security. And he was involved with the block hack. If you know what block DAO is, a decentralized autonomous organization. It deals with cryptocurrency. There's other forms of blockchains and other things going on. And
I know. Do you see that Trump is trying to put everyone's medical data onto the blockchain? Like there's some seriously messed up, nefarious shit going on.
No, we're gonna discuss how this goes back to that, because how are modeling agencies connected to CIA data management? And that's what we'll see in this story. It pops up 3 or 4 times that people at modeling agencies are connected to data management, including Palantir, Cyroon. We talked about last time the Promise software in slot that Robert Maxwell got busted for. Was supposedly gave away this software And this software could be used for missile guidance, tracking. It could be used for casino management, for healthcare databases, for Epstein's blackmail ring. It's a database. It collects databases, it aggregates and makes relationships. And so let's hit the next image. All right, so let's talk about another dude, that modeling agency, Jean-Luc Brunel. You might have heard of Jean-Luc Brunel. And here he is on the plane because Jeffrey don't like sex and she don't like sex. But here she's give him topless. She's giving homie a massage. And this dude was busted for the underage girls as well. Jean-Luc Brunel committed suicide in a French prison in 2020, right?
Before he was
after Epstein, he had to clean this shit up.
Right before he's set to testify, he commits suicide. And you know, these guys are the most empowered narcissists imaginable, right? You think these men are committing suicide?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, no, that's what I'm trying to tell people.
Themselves, who are eugenicists and who want to have as many children as possible, who just break people for fun. Like, I don't buy it.
Yeah. And Jean-Luc, messing around in France, modeling agencies. He was already busted in the late 70s, early 80s for underage girls and rich people, politicians, and all kinds of weird stuff, you know. And so since we're in the 80s, you know, this is the time when all right, so I forgot, there was some information I forgot to tell you earlier. Now, when they're going to those parties, like the Eyes Wide Shut party at those houses, the mansion, supposedly that's the Brofman mansion. Supposedly Edgar Brofman was throwing the parties back in the day. And it's that Brofman money. And because remember, it's 1981 that Jeffrey gives a deposition against Bear Stearns, the company that works as a stock trader, and it deals with Seagram's fraud stock. And it's Edgar Brofman's money. And Edgar Brofman starts the Mega Group with Les Wexner 10 years later. And then the Brofman's kids are involved in the Nexium scandal with Keith Raniere. And so there's a lot of hoo-ha that goes on behind the scenes. But during the 80s, after he gets out of Bear Stearns, Jeffrey Epstein, and he gives his deposition, he goes to work in England. Because it's the 80s is when Jeffrey's kind of off the map. But he's there studying with Douglas Lease, Sir Douglas Lease, arms dealers. That's how he gets in the arms dealing game during that period. And it's during that time that Maxwell's doing the software stuff. I talked about Promise Software in the last episode. But there's more to this story. And that, go to the next image. All right. This is Ghislaine Maxwell's twin sisters, Christina and Isabel, who founded a software company called Magellan and information on demand databases back in the 80s. They moved to Silicon Valley in 1982 and were already working, starting up search engines and all kinds of stuff. Because remember, Daddy had the Pergamon Press. One of them used to manage Pergamon Press, the scientific journals and all gatekeeping, all that tech.
And I remind
people don't know about the twin sisters. They all ain't talking about them. That the little and then what happens is they make a search engine in the 90s that gets bought by Excite search engine. If people might have heard of that back in the day, Excite. And there's problems with it. So what's her next company she founds? It's called Gilead with the dude from the CIA.
Oh, wow.
So Ghislaine Maxwell's twin sisters have a company with ex-CIA members making information data management software. That Palantir stuff, they was already working on that in the 80s, the Maxwell family, through multiple softwares, through Promise, Inslaw, through multiple connections. So by the time they're at Jeffrey's house,
way back then.
Yeah, by the time they're at Jeffrey's house doing the Palantir meetings with William Burns of the CIA and all that stuff, Jeffrey's like, yeah, we've been working on this for 20, 30 years. This is that data management stuff. Like I said, it has healthcare implications, casino management implications, World Trade Center. It's all connected. But let's hit the next image.
Wow.
Oh, there it is right there, Gilead. That's part of their software. So that's the twin sisters deal with the CIA to spy on people. I mean, just That's why people think it's just Epstein or no, this is a big family of people behind the scenes. And the family members are involved, just like the Bush family, Jeb, Marvin, Papa Bush, Prescott, but everyone's involved. Everyone gets titles. Everyone gets money. This is how the game plays. Next image. Let's see another player in the game. Yeah, there's Bush right there.
Is that Nygard?
Oh, of course that's Nygard. Now you see this Jeffrey Epstein's island and this no. Let's get it straight. In 1988, Nygard bought an island.
Really?
Bahamas, not the Virgin Islands. Let's go to the Bahamas, 1980s, where Bush and Prince Andrew and Prince of Monaco and Robert De Niro's and everyone wants to fly out there to that island. And we already talked about Resorts International in Lansky having the offshore paradise island thing out there as a blackmail op. But Nygard buys an island. He's a billionaire and he's above the modeling agencies. And so, Jean-Luc and the other homies, we're providing him the models.
So we should talk for a second. So Peter Nygard is a fashion designer, but more importantly, he owns Nygard, which is a massive fashion brand. He's famous in Canada, or he's from Canada. He was recently indicted and arrested for abusing women and girls, children. So yeah, freaking scary stuff.
He built the prototype.
Yeah, but he died before he could do time.
And his island was like, way different. He dropped $100 million into Bahamian politics, got the prime minister elected, greased everything. People from the arms dealing, child trafficking at a resort in the Bahamas with royalty and celebrities. That he lived his life like he would have people kidnapped and brought to him. Girls underage, whatever. He was a billionaire, and he was facilitating part of the game. It's part of this game. This whole where you get heroin, money laundering, trafficking, stock fraud, intelligence agencies, parties, and he was having the big parties. People were going to his parties. That's what we're talking about: is parties where they go. This is where they hang out and blackmail each other, have fun, and discuss how they're going to control. It's like a Caligula or something. Their parties. That's what he lived in, a Caligula type world. And you could have people brought to him, like bring them to me. Private planes. Epstein's like, oh, whoa, I want my own island like that. I want to do that. But he was creepy. At one time, there was supposedly women try to escape, climbing naked over the fence. Jump at the fence at his resort, and then the Bahamian police would bring them back. They couldn't, even at Epstein's island, was one girl tried to swim to the other island and she was almost drowning. The Coast Guard brought her back, like, yo, homie, here's your girl. Because the governments were involved down there.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's where you get your banks. They have banks set up. And the bank is just a little office on an island. It's virtual money. It's not held. It's virtual money. Probably underwritten by Barclays or by one of those Singapore banks that they have pictures of the same other homies we showed in other episodes. But Nygard connected to all these people, everyone in the story. Nygard was, once again, dies before or unalive before he could tell, well, what was Bush doing down there? Why is Bush hanging out with all these people? Papa Bush. So let's go to the next image. All right. Yeah. In that same time frame, 1988, that Nygard has his island. There's Robert Maxwell. He has his own big parties he's famous for. But this party is for Forbes' birthday party in Morocco at a castle, on a Moroccan castle palace. And you have Elizabeth Taylor there, and everyone dresses up as sheikhs.
Wow.
The richest homies. But there's still intrigue because people at the party are unalived years later, or involved in corruption, arms dealing, entertainment and arms dealing, and rich people, where it all comes together. They're parties where you dress up at the party and become a different character at the party. You're just like you dress up on Monday in a suit and tie to become a different character at the boardroom. These are characters. So let's hit the next image, since we're talking about parties and characters. And here's a picture of Trump during that time frame. back in the day. This is like, all right, so Trump started his own modeling company with John Casablancas, Trump Model Management. But before he did that, he was doing these things with Elite Model Management, and it was called the Look of the Year or Woman of the Year. And they were doing it on boats sometimes. They would do it on the boats and sail around New York Harbor. And Trump is notorious. He talks about he would underage girls, and he would just walk into their dressing rooms and all kinds of things happening. But his partner, once again, is indicted at this. He was already indicted before this. Even before Trump starts a modeling agency with the guy already has charges. Wow. So they already know what's going on. Everyone knows what's going on at these parties. So let's hit the next image. And so one of the judges at the Look of the Year competition with Trump and John Casablancas was David Copperfield. And supposedly David Copperfield roofied some of the models, teenage models, like literally doing his little tricks. Woo! Put things in their drinks and they pass out. That's Claudia Schiffer, his model wife. Remember Claudia Schiffer, supermodel? And there was a lawsuits, multiple lawsuits of women against David Copperfield. He made the lawsuits disappear too. That's what he does, makes things disappear. And he was there creeping out with them at the boats, and the young girls. He has the same taste as Trump and Epstein. Go to the next image. All right. These boat parties and the Hamptons up there in New York Harbor, and Diddy too. Diddy had Hamptons mansion and he want to have his parties. Now this dinner started with dinner en blanc, these white parties in France in the late 80s. Francois Pasquier. And they were doing wild stuff there too, if you look into the history of the after parties of the dinner en blanc parties in France. But Diddy started doing these white parties based on those white parties, the French white parties. And we've heard the stories. And Diddy's connected to the same money.
Oh, yeah. Well, and you know,
we're not saying that like him and Epstein are a team, but it's the money and the lawyers and the people behind it, the management level, the administrative class is, and the purposes that they're doing. This is for blackmail purposes. This is New York. This is a party, and using drugs, using cameras, and using lawyers to get off in modern times.
Well, what they do is it's classic, right? They needed to have a gatekeeper for the Black community, because the Black community is always producing so much art and creativity, and you know these people got to exploit and be there for everything. So Diddy is the man. Diddy is the man that decides. He becomes the gatekeeper. He becomes the one that gets the dirt on everyone, that makes everyone, destroys everyone, or at least attempts to. That's what he is. And he calls himself a tastemaker. He even admits it, that his whole life he's been one of these gatekeepers, but it's always so much more nefarious. And all of these parties are so interconnected in the music industry, and they're everywhere, and it's rampant, right? Like, I want to talk to Paris Hilton because she's been at like 99% of all of these parties, all these white parties, and she's connected to billionaire money. That knows something.
If you should have told me, and I would have put the picture of her with Ghislaine Maxwell.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. You know, even I didn't put the pictures of Paula Zampoli with Melania, the original pictures, considering that Epstein had sex with her a year before Trump. And the first time that Trump and her got together was on his airplane while they're there. And he had ID models, that was the name of his modeling agency. And so the modeling agencies all interconnect to these parties, and it's the money and the lawyers, the lawsuits. And even Diddy, he's connected through the Chandler family, which are connected to the newspaper, LA Times, as well as in New York. Rachel Chandler is kicking it with all this same crew. She's another one of these people. I just didn't put her picture, but she's in there with Clinton, Diddy, Brofman money. This is the same little crew of people. Epstein crowd of girls. It's the socialite scene. But
Right.
if you're in the socialite scene in New York, you got to be careful. You know, people get, this is also intelligence community. It's the big money world.
We also saw, you know, like, we also have to always ask, when these kind of people go down, why are they going down? Right? Why are they going down? Because these people usually don't go down unless it's to protect someone else, or because they're trying to become a major player and they're not welcome in the club. We've seen this time and time again. You know, there's no doubt in my mind that someone like Michael Jackson is part and parcel of all of this abuse. But what he wanted was to be a major player. He wanted to be a billionaire among billionaires, and they said no, and they exposed him. And we see the same thing with Diddy. All of this starts to happen. He finally gets exposed. Everyone's been talking about this since we were kids, Dion. Like, we all knew that this man is a gangster. And all of a sudden, when he starts to become a major player in alcohol, tries to acquire his own serious hold in the industry, that's when this all comes out.
Well, he also went up against old money and sued them.
Yeah.
And he wanted more. And they were already saying, like, we're giving you $50 million a year or something. Like, you got everything that you want. He just wanted more. And like Bill Cosby, when his stuff went down, he was trying to buy, I think, NBC, a studio. He's wanted to acquire a whole TV studio. And then they're like, well, now your dirty comes out. And everyone's got the dirty. So let's talk about another modeling agency. Go to the next pick. It's called Saint Modeling. But even before that, I should take it back to MC2 Modeling, which was Epstein's modeling agency he founded with Jean-Luc Brunel, the guy who committed suicide in a French jail, the guy who was on the plane there, the guy who supplied the models to Peter Nygard. Well, here's Jeffrey Epstein's brother. Since we looked at Ghislaine's sisters and how they're power players and all this with the CIA and the software companies and entertainment as well. This is Mark Epstein, real estate mogul. Got the stuff transferred to him. Has his own modeling agency called Saint Modeling. Just like Epstein, his brother has his own dirty stuff. And what's funny is later on, a lot of Epstein's girls and other businesses are registered through his townhouses around the block from Epstein. On 65th or 66th. They got a whole slew of real estate over there that they're doing hoo-ha. But he's involved. And so when people talk about Epstein in the planes, I've been showing a lot of planes in all these episodes. Well, let's show an airport. Go to the next image. This is Teterboro Airport in New Jersey. Private airport, little teeny airport. Look at that. Probably got one or two little landing strips, if that. But this is where all the richest people fly in and out of New Jersey. Epstein had his little fleet of planes there. 4 planes at $60,000 a month. At least he was paying $250,000 a month to dock his planes there, along with helicopters. He had a fancy helicopter as well. This is where all the politicians, movie stars, Justin Bieber, whoever, rich homies, banking homies, they fly in and out. And the security is lax for them. Once they get past that main gate, and nobody checked them. Nobody checks your limo, your Range Rover, your Ferrari. You just pull up to your private plane and do whatever you want. You have underage girls get out the car, they get in the plane, airport security sees and says nothing, and then they fly to Nygard or Epstein's Island, wherever they're going. And drug trafficking, arms, everything through these private airports. And Teterboro is the airport in New York. The richest homies. Just down the road at Jersey, where this is where half this problem starts, is coming and going to these little airports. Because they're in charge of the security. The security is run by them, by their own companies. So why does it matter? You know, and speaking of the planes and Epstein's girlfriends, let's go to the next image. Talk about one of his other girlfriends. because we talked about Ghislaine Maxwell, who was his girlfriend. You see all the pictures of them together, but they only had sex once, she said. And she didn't like sex and he can't have sex. Here's his, one of his other girlfriends, Nadia Marcinkova, who's a pilot, stunt pilot at that. She can fly like jumbo jets, do tricks, and started her own aviation company with Epstein's money called Aviloop. Go to the next image. And Aviloop would supply stewardesses to private airports and private planes that could fly, that can be hostesses, that can give you anything you want. That's what the ad says. If you were to click on that, they'll do whatever you want. And he had his own aviation models started by that woman through Jeffrey's money. And what's wild is Jeffrey had a bunch of these girls. Some would make appointments. Some became dentists. He would put them all through school. Like when you got to the next level of Jeffrey's girls, like Charlie's Angels, each one of them gets degrees. He buys their families houses, and they become loyal, and then they help them procure. And a lot of them are all registered to Mark Epstein's properties, his brothers, around the block. And a lot of the women, the victims, say that these women are involved. These are the groomers. These are the ones that would pick them up. And they bring him to him, and these are his girlfriends. And what's weird, the way he got them into the country, a lot of them is he would have them get married. He would marry someone else for visa, but they'd marry each other. So a lot of these girls were married to each other in lesbian relationships. Even though they're not lesbian, they would be like, oh, you want to come and you marry each other, and then you'll be wives. So there's at least 3 or 4 couples around him that are all his women that are intermarried. That's how they got the visas. Wow. And they're all trained. They're trained to bring in women, and then they're trained in degrees to do things. Their own, whatever your dream was, all right? One's a dentist, one's an airline pilot, one has their own interior design company. And they all have agreements with the United States government not to be persecuted. That was the deal that Jeffrey signed through Alex Acosta, through the Bush administration. Bill Barr, as attorney, said, all right, none of your women could be prosecuted. And the banks, including Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan, paid out $270 million to all the victims, and they signed NDAs that they can't talk. So the government just spent almost $1 billion to make this thing quiet. Let's go to the next image.
Wow. Well, they're spending another $1 billion with all of this military invasion distraction.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So speaking of these parties, let's keep it going. These white parties. Well, here's Michael Rubin. He want to have his white party too, out there in the Hamptons. Here's with Little Baby. Here's a picture of Little Baby. And if people know Little Baby's like a street gangster, hood of the right here. You can see how hood he is right there. With the billionaire homie up on him right there, all zesty. Insane. And he's like, woo. And there's a video where this guy right here makes Meek Mill jump up and down like a dolphin or something. He tells him, jump, Meek, jump. And Meek Mill, if he knows another gangster rapper, like, tough homie, kill you. And he's like, nah. This guy's like, well, I want you to jump like a puppy. And these are their parties. Because they go to these parties, though, you get made, though. But also the homie's like, well, I'm gonna make you #1 platinum single, whatever you need. We'll get it cracking. Well, what's more to the story is this character right there, Michael Rubin, has a lawsuit on him for what was it, 100 million, 200 million, something. Because he has a company called Fanatics that deals with sports betting and uses the software stuff. And some other homie that does software, Mr. Leon Black, that we've talked about in the other episodes, the Palantir associate, the Peter Thiel Club, sued this dude over trickeration. Remember, and Leon Black got sued by the Virgin Islands for $60 million for his role in the Epstein stuff. They all sue each other. It's a big club, corrupt, and a lot of the sports stuff is involved. That's why I'm going to show how it's involved through the parties. He does Fanatic sports betting, the software stuff, sued by Leon Black through some Palantir stuff. And, there's a lot more. There's like Robert Kraft. Remember the Robert Kraft stuff down in Florida at the massage parlor? The owner of the New England Patriots. He's down there with and that lady turned out to be CCP because she has pictures with Trump. It stings. This is Florida. It stings. Sex stings, money, sports, entertainment, CIA, data management, girls, all comes together. This is their world. This is the rich person's world. Even Epstein had connections to Roman Abramovich, that owns Chelsea, because the guy who was his co-owner, who they killed, had him unalived. It was Boris Berkovsky or whatever, some other billionaire connected to Epstein, and Prince Andrew and all them, all interconnected. Go to the next image.
Wow.
All right. We'll try to, we still got a couple little seconds here.
Is that Woody Allen?
Appreciate your time. Appreciate your guys' time, because we still got to get through Manhattan into the royals, into these parties. All right. Manhattan. How was it made? And I didn't know. It's like a marsh, like an island there, where what people call New York. And Astor made Manhattan. And the way the Astor family did it was, Astor was importing opium from Turkey and taking it to China and selling it off the boats, and then taking that money and putting it into the British banks, cleaning it, taking it out, and then he would invest in Manhattan. That was all his fortune. He invested in Manhattan before it became anything. And then at a certain point, it becomes the most millionaires in the world per square space, square footage. And it's the capital of the world, financial center, let's say, of the world at a certain point. With all these mansions built and all the people moving there, all the banking families, the infrastructure that's set up there. So much so that there's a song by Leonard Cohen. First we take Manhattan, then we take Berlin. You ever heard the song from Leonard Cohen, First We Take Manhattan? Yeah, that's about why Manhattan first, because it's the financial center of the world. And even in the song, he talks about a modeling agency. He even says that they're doing what you're doing to the models. I don't like what you're doing to the models. So we have to take Manhattan.
I love it.
He says what you're doing to my sister, giving her drugs. The modeling agency. He sums it up best in First We Take, because Manhattan, literally financial center. A lot of it's there. Look at, there's Woody with his wife, daughter. Started off as his daughter and then became his wife.
Oh God.
And she cool with it, but she cucks him out. She's a cold piece. Just saying. He messed her over when she's 12-year-old family. She's an orphan from Asian country, and then their family's totally dysfunctional, crazy. And then years later, she's like a dragon lady. And he's a cuck, and he's worth $1 billion. And here's Jeffrey hanging out in Manhattan. Let's have fun, because this is their vibe. Let's talk about Manhattan and those millionaires. Like, that's where Wall Street is. The New York Stock Exchange, Wall Street. That's where they decide how much money is worth. That's where all those big cases are tried. That's where they bring Chapo. That's where they bring, if there's a financial crime in America, something big, it's tried in Manhattan, at the Manhattan court. That's where he died. And it's funny, Epstein, in terms of money, he had over 150 bank accounts of money moving around. Last episode, we talked about his house, 71st Street, in the neighborhood. How next to him was Howard Lutnick, that lived next to him. Trump's head of some, the labor commission, or one of those departments he put him in charge of. And Howard Lutnick was involved in the 9/11 stuff, the AIG stuff. Now, in terms of Manhattan, there's so much corruption that goes on there. Once I started studying the network, because I was like, well, if that's Epstein's neighbor, what about his other neighbors? Surely Epstein was getting around the neighborhood. And he was.
Who else was there, Dion?
Because that neighborhood had the Bear family, the Strauss family, the Bayless family. Down the street was Martha Stewart, the breakfast at Tiffany's house. You know about the breakfast at Tiffany's house was Peter Bogdanovic, who was Martha Stewart's lawyer dude. Remember Martha Stewart's involved in insider trading and all that stuff?
Right.
Yeah. It's a Manhattan set. This is the rich people set down the street from them. Like, all right. So if we talked about you walk out of Epstein's house, you go to the right or left, and it's a Howard Lutnick. Well, if you go across the street and knock on the door, Bill Cosby.
Howard Lutnick and Bill Cosby, like, geez.
Yeah, Bill Cosby's across the street. And Epstein's like, hey, we're having a party later. What you like? Pudding. He's like, yeah, let's go.
Oh, God.
I'm just saying, these folks get along, and it's the Manhattan set. There's so much more to Manhattan. That's where you have that's where the jail was that he was unalived at. You have Columbia University, which is famous. They had a $220 million lawsuit recently over the CIA stuff. And over Epstein. Columbia University got sued over Epstein. And because of the money. He was involved with it. But Columbia University is a CIA front. 100%. Hillary Clinton works there after she got out of office. Mike Pompeo, former CIA director, when he got out of office, he went straight there. They're all there. The big homies go and work there in Manhattan at the university where they recruit and do tech stuff. And because it's through universities that they also do a lot of their hoo-ha. Like even Harvard. Harvard's a hedge fund. That's why the stuff recently in the news has been about denying Harvard their grants. And finally they gave them their grants, didn't they? They gave $9 billion to Harvard. That's because Harvard's a hedge fund.
Harvard stuff is weird because Pete Hegseth was also an alumni from Harvard. Like, so there's a bunch of Harvard people in Trump's cabinet.
Well, the thing is with Harvard is it's not a school. The school is like 20% of what it does. The other 80% is a hedge fund that invests money. It makes money. And it invests money in political stuff around the world. Like when they're going to do an Iran-Contra thing, well, Harvard will go over there and invest and do political stuff as well. Through books, articles, investment, through recruiting students, through influencing what people think about things, controlling gatekeeping. It's just total gatekeeping at that, 100%. And at Harvard, part of it, we talked about William Burns, who had the meeting there with Palantir homies, Leon Black, Peter Thiel at Epstein's house. He became the head of the CIA during Biden. So after that meeting, Biden puts him in. So it's not like there's a problem between them all. He's like, oh, well, you had the meeting with Epstein? Well, then we put you in. Like, yeah. Peter Thiel and the homies. But people don't know Bill Burns or William Burns before he was the CIA director for Biden. He was the diplomat ambassador to Russia and setting up the Russian stuff with Putin and stuff. And Harvard hedge fund. He was involved with the Harvard investment into Russia.
Wow.
After he did the meeting, it's all interconnected. And the CIA is so mobbed up in Manhattan. Go to the next image. Right, so there's Manhattan. And it's like an island. All around that is the richest homies, the troublemakers. All right there. Little spot. Originally, that's where there's all at. So go to the next image. All right. One of the buildings there. This building is called 33 Thomas Avenue. It's an AT&T building. It's a CIA building. It has no windows, only vents for equipment. This is where they do on the East Coast, the monitoring for data management, for the surveillance. This is the CIA surveillance hub on the East Coast, is in Manhattan at that special building down the street. That's why you want to take Manhattan first. We'll go to the next image. There's another building there that's special too, 666 Fifth Avenue. Kushner. And Kushner, the only reason Kushner saved the building because he did the $1 billion deal with the House of Saud, or the Kuwaiti guy.
Wow.
And that's that money, that arms dealing money and control in Manhattan.
Back to Khashoggi, right from episode 1.
Yeah, and they're all interconnected. And Manhattan is part of it. You can find everyone there. It all ends up there as well. Florida is like the swamps where they go down to play, but Manhattan is highbrow. And then you leave Manhattan and go to the Hamptons. Just saying, where was 9/11 happened? Manhattan, down the street right there. Yeah, that's where the towers were, down the street from Lutnick's house. And Manhattan has several cults, just so you know. Several cults. And these cults are connected to the same set. Besides NXIVM, because NXIVM used to meet at the Ace Hotel in Manhattan. There was one cult called the Sullivanians. You can type them in. And they used to recruit people through theater, through Gurdjieff theater, called the Fourth. They have one called the Fourth Way. It's called the Fourth Way. Or no, the Fourth Wall. The Sullivanians did the Fourth Wall theater. And it was a sex cult in Manhattan that used Gurdjieff to recruit people into theater. But it had connections to banking stuff as well. And then there was another cult with Sharon Gans called the Odyssey Study Group. And they were doing Gurdjieff stuff too, Fourth Way, and it was a sex cult. And they would use a theater. It's called the Theater of the Unknown. And they would use that in Manhattan to recruit people. So you would go to these theatrical performances that are existential and what have you, and then like political, and next thing you know, you're back at an orgy, a Gurdjieffian orgy in Manhattan that's connected to banking families.
Wow.
I mean, it's this place, you know, I can afford to go there. I can see why. Go to the next image. Here's a party in Manhattan for Bette Midler. And who's that? On the left, that's Ghislaine. And on the right is Eva Dubin. If you know, Eva Dubin was, well, her story is a little complicated in that, I would have to tell you. She used to date Jeffrey in the 80s. She was Miss Sweden. And then her husband is Glenn Dubin, the hedge fund manager, the one that Virginia Giuffre named in the lawsuit. Jeffrey's buddy. But Jeffrey was dating his girlfriend first. And I didn't put the pictures of Jeffrey with their daughter, Selena. And you could type in Selena and Jeffrey, and there's pictures with him holding, cuddling their daughter on the plane. And the homie's cool with it. The billionaire's like, cool, yeah. Like it's incestuous what they're up to. And this is the world of the royals and these parties, these rich people, the Dubins, Miss Sweden. Go to the next image. We'll wrap this up. We got a few more images. The royals. Now, how this all interconnects. It's because through the royals that's how you meet the House of Saud. That's how you meet the banking heads of the bank. That's how you see Andrew and Michael and the different heirs to the throne there. Since they ain't king, they have no purpose. They get an allowance like $100,000 a year or something. And so they have to make their money through social engagements, speeches, and connecting people, and a lot of arms dealing. You'd be surprised. Andrew is dumb like a little kid, but he can get on the phone and connect somebody else to an arms dealer and make some money off it. And that's what the royal family does in England. Prince Michael, his brother, was involved with that, as well as Freddie Windsor, his son. And they're connected to Epstein as well. All connected to Epstein. There's Ghislaine in the background, smiling like the Black Widow she is, putting the things together. And they unalived Virginia last year or recently.
I know.
A couple months ago, she was unalived.
Rest in peace, Virginia. You know,
yeah.
We really need to pay attention to the victims and listen to their families, guys. You know.
And Trump was mad at Epstein because he said that Epstein took her from him when she was 16 from Mar-a-Lago. You stole her from me.
I know, like she's property. Talking about a human
what
being.
What is she doing there at 16? What is she doing there at 16 at Mar-a-Lago? Anyways. No, Jeffrey had a whole op running out of the Palm Beach High School. Literally. Like most CIA homies are there at college level. Epstein's like already got his spies up at the Palm Beach High School.
We haven't even talked about it, but you told me when he was involved in that music thing out of some school where he was abusing all the people at that music college. Like everything that Epstein touches.
Well, he got his story. So Epstein, his first school scholarship he got was for bassoon scholarship. He was a bassoon protege. So they sent him to a music camp And later on, he went back to that music camp when he had the money and said, I would like to build a lodge. He built a lodge at the summer music camp next to the girls' dorm. Then he would sponsor and go there. And Ghislaine would go there, and they'd fly there and go into the woods when girls are playing music and the school band, and he's in his cabin next to them and giving money to the Everton school, whatever it was called. It's a cold piece. And not only did he mess with Andrew a lot, he messed with Princess Diana's brother, the Earl of Spencer. He introduced him to his girlfriend because these royals can't meet their own girls. You can't go to a bar and be like, what's up? They have to be brought to you, and they have to sign NDAs and not talk, and they have to do certain things you want. Like Prince Andrew was a cold piece. Like, even his friends around him, when he would come in the room, they'd say, oh, hey, what's up, Andrew? You say, no, let's do that over. He would leave the room and come back in, and they'd have to salute him. Hello, Prince Andrew, Duke of Kent. Like, he needed power because he has no power. His brother got the power, and he just gets an allowance. And so he has to get involved in shady activities. And supposedly he's crazy. Like more than Epstein. Like he just goofy. He's like a little kid mentally. Like a 12-year-old, a man baby. And so
it's what affluence does to people, man.
Well, and the royalty at that, because they have people wiping their asses for them. Go to the next image.
We're talking extreme affluence, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, we talked about Epstein's house. We walk out the front door. I go right, I get Howard Lutnick. I cross the street and knock on the door, and Bill Cosby answers. Well, I decided I'm going to knock on the next door across. All right, so next to Bill Cosby's house, across from Epstein, is this house. And who lived there was Prince Pavlos and Chantal Miller. And that's the Prince of Greece. And Chantal Miller, and they're in the phone book of Jeffries, of course. And she's an heiress. Her father's a billionaire, Robert Miller, in England, involved in stuff. And her sisters, one was married to a Getty. The other one is a von Stromsburg. Big players of stuff. But she was going to school in Manhattan and lived across the street from Jeffrey Epstein in his book. Now, Prince Pavlos had a party. And it's written about, you can type it in, the Prince Pavlos Heaven and Hell party for his 40th birthday. And he invited a lot of these people that we've been talking about in the past episodes. They end up at the party. And it's a Heaven and Hell party. I don't have to tell you, but there's problems happen. And there's an incident with the Windsor family come out, and they're screaming and all kinds of wild stuff. And this is Epstein's world, the party world, and everyone's there. And the reason I want to show you this is to show you his connection to royalty. It's not just to Prince Andrew, not just to the Earl of Spencer, Diana's brother, or Prince Michael and them. Here we have the Prince of Greece. Go to the next image. Because there's another woman who was hanging out at Epstein's house back in the day. And she had to apologize for it in public recently. Her name was Princess Metzi Marit. And she says, yeah, when I was younger, yeah, there are pictures of me naked in New York getting getting crazy. And yeah, I've been to Epstein's house several times, but I was in my youth, and now I'm a chaste princess. Well,
oh my gosh.
Her first two husbands were involved in drug smuggling. One committed suicide. And the son, you've heard about the son recently raping women. And
basically, yeah, he just got, what was it, 3 assault charges or counts?
Madness, bad boy.
Prince of Norway, freaking crazy.
And that's Prince Haakon right there on the right. Who and they were mad at first. They're like, dude, why did you get her? You should have got a royal. You should have married one of your cousins. Like, what's up? And eventually he was popular. People liked that he married a commoner, just like his father did. And, let's talk about, all right, go to the next image. I want to show you his sister. All right. Martha Louise, Princess of Norway. She crazy too, involved in stuff. She started her own cult because she's a psychic, and against protocol, she married this dude last year. Less than a year, she'd been married to this dude. His name is Shaman Durek. You go to his website, he calls himself a shaman. And so he's like a Rasputin taking over the royal family of Norway. And they're trying to kick him out now. No, go to the next image. He sells these magic pendants that he say will heal you with his symbols in them.
Oh my gosh.
He got her all twisted. This is the Norwegian royal family that Epstein messed with these homies. No, he gets around in Norway over there. Go to the next image. See, okay, because we were talking about Prince Haakon. Well, his ex-girlfriend is the Swedish billionaire heiress right there. What's her name? I don't know. I know her name is Sophia. I'm pretty sure it's no, it's Simberly. Simberly Espinosa. That's it. Simberly Espinosa. Besides being the dude that we were just looking at, of the Prince of Norway, his girlfriend, besides being Epstein's girlfriend, she was also Trump's girlfriend as well. No,
girlfriends, right?
Between the Prince of Norway, Epstein, and Trump are sharing this girl who's an heiress to a lot of money in Norway, connected to the royal family. You can see there's a little more to this story. People don't know about Epstein. Now go to the next image. All right. Here's Ghislaine, but this is a different prince. He's a twin as well, because we already talked about her twin sisters. Well, here she's with the twin right here. It's Dimitri. Dimitri has a jewelry company in Manhattan. He operates out of, and he's a prince, and his brother is a prince as well, Prince Michael, and they're the princes of Yugoslavia. And you know, you can see the connections between the royalty, the bankers, and these parties. Now, here they are at a party. Now, the woman right there that's looking up, that's Christina Oxenberg. And she's their sister to the twins. And she is talked about. Ghislaine was her bestie, her best friend at a certain point. She came public recently and said that she had to call off the friendship years ago from all the creepy stuff that Ghislaine told her. She's the only person that's come forward and said, nah, she's creepy. She did creepy stuff. The royals are doing creepy stuff. I can't tell you it all, but they're creepsters. So kudos to Christina Oxenberg for coming forward and just saying, yeah, this is what they get up to. And I don't want to be part of it.
Wild.
You know, so we can leave it there. Just leave it with that. And because there's so much more, we can go for hours. The connections between all these people. And now you have, they're indicting the Clintons, have to go speak. What's the Clinton? What is he going to say? Like, yeah, I was at the party with you, Trump. What are you talking about? We was there.
And, you know, more and more evidence keeps coming up because now, like, there's so much at stake now, right? Like, as Trump ratchets up this coup for a power grab, those who have an invested interest in undermining him are going to be throwing so much smoke at the wall, right? This Epstein thing is only going to ratchet up to an 11, and Trump is only going to ratchet things up to an 11. None of this is going away anytime soon.
So regardless who wins, the same bankers behind have ultimate control. They use this, it's like hip hop beef. That you got to have a battle to create this tension, to create this stuff. And so they're going to battle it out, but behind the scenes, Peter Thiel or Deutsche Bank, whoever, they still make the money. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's the same homies, still make the money. They just have to fight it out. It's almost like, and people ask, well, if they have ultimate power, why are they fighting this stuff out? Why do they have to play the games in public? Well, when we talked about Chaco Canyon, why did they play games there? They didn't have to. They didn't have to solve an outcome, a political outcome over a dice game, and somebody's life could be sacrificed over a game. Why do they do gladiator games? Because rich people still value that element of chance, and it's still gambling, and they like because they consider it like Monaco. The world is like a giant Monaco or giant Las Vegas to them. So that's why they don't always enact their stuff directly. It shall happen through a game, the great game. It's part of their fun or the way they do things. That's how metaphysics works in the cult. It's through games.
Yeah, exactly. It's all through games, and it's all through theater and performance. Like a lot of people I know, we have a couple people who are interested in the Gurdjieff work. And I want to talk about for a second before we end today why all of this kind of stuff is important, because we need to look at what these elites and what these celebrities are doing. What was Gurdjieff's big power? He changed the whole game for cult leaders. He was one of the first true enthusiastic cult guys who had an empowered whole fan base that used to just worship him. And he managed to make it work for his whole life. He managed to keep it together. This guy is like the model. And the thing with him is he advertised this whole, the fourth way, where you're not, it's all about empowering yourself and your will and breaking people down. Like we talked about it, Gurdjieff purposely threw himself into the war zones to harden himself. And then he used to destroy people for fun. And this is what the elite want. They want that power of ego that someone like Gurdjieff could wield. And we see this the same thing when you look at what they're doing in terms of all of that get rich type magic, right? Napoleon Hill. Same thing when we're talking about the Christian New Thought, even down to The Secret. I believe in myself, right? Empowering myself and my will. All of this is magic, and all of it's about creating empowered people who can dominate others.
I would say that's Trump. Isn't that the art of the deal? Is the art of the will? It's exactly. About it. That's why they have teams, and they put their two guys out there, and whoever has more will and the luck of the draw, and that's what happens. It's charisma, personality. So, in future episodes, we're going to discuss Rahm Emanuel and Gavin Newsom, Peter Thiel, J.D. Vance, and where it's at now, because they've just set the stage. They're just setting the stage for us to move into some 1984 novel, and I don't like that.
No, we don't like it at all, right? We're seeing it all always, and it's always the same. They exploit the same thing. Won't you think of the children? Now give me your ID before you can turn on your computer. Won't you think of the children?
And that software, the Maxwell twin sisters and Robert Maxwell was already involved in the 80s in that stuff.
Right.
As well as Les Wexner and his connections, and those people were involved in it. Before we ever get Palantir in our police state, this is going to be Minority Report in a minute, pre-crime. And whereas what's funny is, though, as we live in a police monitored state, they're at these chateaus and mansions playing dress up and having Caligula orgies.
Right.
Off our dime.
Well, they try to hold the rest of us to some absurd parody of Christian nationalism, while they go off and do the most horrific, hedonistic, selfish, debaucherous evil.
And we've seen that, whether it's at the oligarchs in Russia, the bourgeoisie, wherever is it the richest homies. Once they get alone, they're having fun.
Well, you know what? There's a certain thing where once you get to a certain level of affluence, they become dissatisfied with reality and life itself. They're so escapist. Everything becomes about power and breaking free. And ultimately, what do these people seek to do? They want to shatter the nomos. They want to engage in absolute freedom. And what do you have to do to shatter the nomos? What do you have to do to break free of law? You have to commit the ultimate taboo. And what is the ultimate taboo? To destroy what is sacred, the child. And that's what these people are all engaged in. It's always the same. It's always the same. Across time and history, all about trying to achieve some kind of ecstasy and self-empowerment and some kind of immortality and just
living God. They want to be living gods. I get it.
Yeah.
But you're a living God already. The fact that you're breathing, that's what I'm saying, is if you're breathing, boom, that's it. That's all. That's your bank account right there, is your breath. That's all we're worried about here. And being happy
in the cycle. We're supposed to be alive. Quit getting caught up in the air. Come back down to earth. After this episode, guys, go touch some grass. You know, disconnect from all this propaganda for a moment and take a deep, serious breath, because that's what it all is.
Yeah, because we sit here for an hour talking about nefarious and dark subjects, and always at the end of every episode, we try to walk away like, hey, you're happy, everything's beautiful, that's all okay. Hopium. First we do fear porn, then we do hopium. That's how it works here.
Yeah. You know, life is beautiful and the cycles will continue and we will work this out eventually. You know, I have faith in humanity. This is the thing that disconnects us from that kind of nonsense. These people who have zero empathy, right? I have faith in humanity and I have faith that we can overcome all this. We just need to get out of this nonsense. Stop listening to the bullshit. Touch grass, right?
I will.
Learn to love
So with that,
all right.
Make sure you like, subscribe, share. We love comments.
Yep.
Join us next week. We'll have some more fun.
Yeah, we'll be back with part 4. There's always more stuff to discuss, and I'm so looking forward to it. Thank you guys for joining me. And Dion, really appreciate you. Any final words before we say goodbye?
Stay blessed. Have fun. Come on.
All right. Peace and love, everyone.
Touch grass.
Touch grass.